Matt, I can't believe that you're insinuating people should run into planes. It's just terrible. Like,
did I do that again?
Welcome to the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show, where hosts Brian Leverage and Jeffrey Holst pour out old-fashioned real estate advice.
Episode 36.
Hello there, my name is Jeff, and this is the Old Fashioned Real Estate Show. Where's Brian?
I'm Brian.
I don't know if that worked or not, but we think it was funny. He disappears and reappears because we're really at the beach. This is not a fake Zoom background.
Subtropical Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it is now week 1 million of the coronavirus shutdown, and we decided to do a Zoom meeting. So that's what we're doing for Old Fashioned Real Estate today. And we have a very special guest with us, someone who frankly would never come and see us in person. But he was willing to take a few minutes out of his day and appear via Zoom. So, Matt, how are you today?
I'm hanging in there. I'm, like you said, week 1 million of the lockdown. And, I'm pretty much not allowed to go anywhere. So,
so you're in Birmingham?
I am in Birmingham. Yep. Birmingham, Alabama.
Right.
We're just hanging out.
Yeah, no, that's what everyone's doing these days, right? So it's like first week of May right now, because we released this a little bit after we actually record it. This is the first time Brian and I have been in the same room in weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're not distanced.
Yeah. Well, we have an invisible wall between us.
Well, if you look in the background, there's a stiff ocean breeze that carries any virus.
Oh, that's a good point.
Although Jeff is upwind from me, so he's got the real risk.
I might have to change the background just because, it's really irritating to me.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to go with it. So anyway, we actually did not come to talk about Zoom backgrounds or Birmingham, Alabama. We actually came to talk about something which Matt's very knowledgeable about, which is using technology to do due diligence. So before we get into that, though, I want to tell you guys a little bit about Matt. So I met Matt in Denver, I think. Was it Denver?
Denver,
at a multifamily event in Denver. He was driving a Tesla, which was awesome because he's a tech guy, and that's what tech guys do, apparently. In fact, the only time I've ever ridden in a Tesla, because I'm kind of as cool as Matt. But yeah, so he was driving a Tesla, super fast car, super fun. And we got to talking about multifamily investing in the Southeast in particular, because we're both from the Southeast. And, I'm excited to have you on. So thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I'm really interested to hear what you have to share with us about the technology that you use for multifamily investing.
Yeah. So let's get started. I got a little show and tell. I'm going to show you few things that I like to use. I'm going to start out with one that some people that know me have probably seen me do before, and it is the VR headset. This is a Oculus Quest. There's another one that I'll suggest here in a minute. That's a little bit more cost effective than this one. This one's not really bad. It's like $500. You can't get it for that now because everybody seems to be buying them. They're all locked down. They want to go somewhere, right? Yeah. So this is what I kind of start out a lot of my due diligence process with something like this, because it's not always easy to drive somewhere. And yes, you can use Google Street View or whatever, but to me it's just not the same as using one of these things, because I can put this on, I can go anywhere in the world, in an instant, and it's, I'm turning around, I'm looking, I'm going down the street, I've got a little controller and I can just, tap where I want to go. And it's kind of like the difference between this and doing like Google Street View to me is like the difference between looking at a picture of a stadium and being inside of the stadium. So if I go somewhere and I want to see a property in another state, say, if somebody asks me, hey, can you go drive this? And I'm not close, I'm going to throw this on because I can see stuff that I miss when I'm like doing it on the computer and doing the street view and all that. And I kind of really just get the vibe a little bit more, if that makes sense. You know how you can kind of get the vibe of the neighborhood.
So do you, so you must use a specific program or something, because I've had a VR headset and I enjoyed it, but it was, they didn't film an area, I didn't have access to it. So what are you using to get the? Are you using like a Google Street View kind of thing?
There's an app called Wander, WANDER, Wander. And Wander gets, I don't know if it's all Google information, but they've got a lot. I mean, there's stuff everywhere. The nice thing about it is when you go someplace, you can click on it and you can pull back out and go into the map view. You can scroll around, drop yourself, just like you do on Google Street View. But the nice thing about it, and one of the things I like too, is as I'm looking at places, a lot of times I'm looking at an area, right? I'm looking across the street or whatever, and there's a little place I can click and I can go down and see the other years that stuff was recorded. And so I can say, come back to my partners and say, hey, look, there's been this much, stuff has been done in the last 5 years. But between the years of 2009 and 2012, they built a new, Top Golf came, all of a sudden came over here, or the Mercedes-Benz dealership, got redone and it's twice as big, or the roads just got, I looked at a place not long ago and the road had been paved 6 months earlier. And so I went back 6 months and it was the old road and it was like a completely different place. But it's nice because you can just click and it just changes right in front of you. It's like you can see the whole chronology of the area. It's great. I love it.
So if you use this Wander app, is it like 3-dimensional? So it feels a lot like you're actually there?
Oh yeah, it feels just like you're there. You put it on, you can walk around. You can walk around by clicking and moving to the next place, just like you do on Google Street View. But also, I mean, I can just turn around, look at everything.
Nice.
It's really handy. Like I've been places where I've looked and on Street View stuff that I missed, like I can see the condition of parking lots and streets and stuff like that I might normally miss. I'll say, oh, well, there's a pothole over here. Well, I didn't see that when I was looking at regular Street View because you just you're more in tune with it. I don't know how to explain it, but this is the thing I like to start with. So, if it looks good from this, and I ask myself the question when I'm doing that, when I'm standing there in the middle of the street, I say, would I feel safe in this neighborhood, or would I feel like this is a good place to put my money? And would I want to walk around out here if I was renting this apartment? Would this be a good area? And it's just kind of a gut thing that you don't really get when you do the Street View, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it does. So I've seen some people film the inside of high-end houses and stuff, but you're not seeing that, right? Like most of the time, the brokers aren't sending you some kind of ability to walk around in the halls of the apartment complex.
Right. Yeah, they don't. But however, you can if they have, because this has like a browser and all that you can do too. So if they have those virtual tours in some situations, yeah, if you can go to it with a browser, a lot of times you can do it with this as well. I mean, this thing does a lot of other stuff. But what I would suggest if somebody's getting it and they're only just using it for that, like this does a lot of stuff, the one I have, and this one's actually upgraded. I've upgraded it to have the, different stuff, the audio is upgraded and all that. It's actually kind of Frankenstein a little bit, but the one I would suggest for the average person that's doing this is there's a one under this. It's called the Oculus Go. And you can get one if you can find one now. Because they're all sold out everywhere. But if you can find one, you can pick one up for like $200. And it's got one controller. This one's a little more advanced. It's got 2 controllers. It doesn't need to be hooked to a computer or anything like that. Neither does the Go, but the Go has one controller. It's, a tiny controller. If you've ever used like a Roku, it's got the controller's about the size of a Roku controller. But I mean, you can control all the stuff with that. It's just great.
Cool. Well, that does sound cool. I'm gonna have to try that actually.
Yeah, it's actually really good.
$200. I mean, why not? And also,
a couple $100. I mean, and you can find them. Sometimes they'll go on sale. They probably won't for a little while now, but sometimes you can pick them up for $150. I mean, it's like, it's stupid. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, and it's really fun. It sounds like it'd be a fun thing to do. You can just wander around and see what's going on.
So, how long have you been doing this for? In this particular fashion.
Are you talking about the tech part, or are you talking about the real estate?
Well, no, the tech part.
Well, I mean, basically ever since they've had this stuff available. I mean, I've as soon as this kind of stuff comes out, that's the first thing I'm an early adopter. So this kind of stuff comes out, I'm the guy that's grabbing it.
So you've been using virtual reality tours for a couple of years now, then 3-4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
That's what I always do.
Okay,
and
so yeah, that's cool. You brought some other stuff for us. What else?
I did, yeah. So the next thing I would suggest, if somebody's going out to a property and looking at something, and this is something that's paid off for me, is a drone. And I'm going to give you a little bit of drone history here. It's going to be short, but it's interesting. So this is what most people think of when they think of a drone. They see a drone. This is a classic. This is a DJI Phantom. This is what a lot of people think of, these big whopping drones. And I mean, this is a pretty decent sized drone. This was one of my first drones right here. It's a great drone, does awesome video. The great thing about having a drone, obviously, is for like rooftop inspections. But this guy right here, I mean, he's a little big for doing that. There are bigger ones, but this guy right here is a little bit bigger. So, they moved on from that. The next thing was this. This is the Mavic. I got his camera.
It looks like it belongs in like Star Wars.
Yeah, so this is the Mavic. This is the one that basically came after this, that everybody was like, oh man, this is the thing that can fit in your pocket, right? And this is great. It's awesome. So this was basically the next iteration after this. So if you're looking to film an apartment, and they have a newer version of this that you can get that has a zoom on it, which is great if you're trying to film a roof and actually see the condition of it without having to get too close. It's great for people who aren't good pilots, but that's easy. However, this is still not the one I'm going to recommend. And the one I'm going to recommend is this little guy right here, the Mavic's little brother. This is the Mavic Mini. So this guy right here.
It's kind of creepy, actually. It kind of reminds me of a bug or something.
This little guy right here. Hold on, I flipped his wings out. I mean, look at the size difference between this one and this one. It's almost comical. This guy right here is smaller than a can of Coke. I mean, it can fit in your pocket. So, and you see, even the case on this thing is not that big. And to give a contrast, I want to show you this first one here that I showed. Here is the controller for the first one that I showed you, and here is the new drone. Look at this. I mean, it's insane. So I want to tell you a little story real quick about why this is so great and how this has saved me money. So rather than having someone come out, I mean, if you're in multifamily real estate, you should have a pretty good idea what a good roof and a bad roof looks like, right? I mean, that's kind of not that hard to figure out. I mean, if it's really in bad shape. So if you can halfway figure that out, you don't necessarily have to have somebody come out and do a ladder and all that on all the roofs. You can actually figure out pretty much a general condition of your roof just by using one of these guys. This one right here is crazy stupid cheap. It comes with like one battery and no extras is like $3.99. If you get the pack that's got 3 batteries and extra parts and all this, $4.99 for three batteries. Each battery is like a half hour of flying. So, and the last property that my partners and I just bought, I pulled this thing out, right? I'm at the property, inspection's going good, everything's going fine. Owners seem to be happy. The owners are there. It was a small mom and pop kind of property, 30 units, and they seem to be happy with how everything was going. I pulled this little guy out, and the older guy, the owner, he kind of looks at me and goes, "What is that?" And I said, "That's a drone." And he goes, "Does it fly?" And he said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Does it have a camera on?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, you're in space now." He said,
We're flying. We're like a drone.
He was like, "Oh, so you'll be able to see whatever it sees?" And I was like, "Yeah." His eyes got like this big, and I was like, "Okay, there's something we're missing, right?" So I fly the drone, flying it over all the roofs. Everything looks good until I get to the next to last one, and there's a spot probably at least 100 square feet that is just basically a patch. I mean, and it's on the backside of one of these buildings. He had not disclosed that to us before. And I don't even want to say it's a patch. That's giving it too much credit. It was basically like somebody had thrown basically a tarp or roofing, like a felt over the top of shingle. There's no shingles in this whole area. So to call it a patch was probably a little, and there were several other places. And they had not said anything to us. And I said, "What's that?" And the guy was just kind of like, I don't know what that is. And I said, well, it looks like the roof is messed up. So guess what? Guess who paid for a new roof? Not us. So, this little guy, this little $500 worth of drone bought a new roof for us without me having to even get an inspector out there.
So how hard is it for the average person who's not a tech person to fly one of these things?
This is super easy. I mean, it's got a little tiny controller I can show you real quick. It's got a little tiny controller with basically 2 sticks right here is the main thing. There's one goes, up and down, left and right, and then forward and backwards, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty simple. So it's not hard. And another thing I forgot to mention, the other reason I recommend this one rather than the other ones, the FAA has a rule where if your drone is 250 grams or more, you have to register it with the FAA. Anything under 250 grams, they consider to be a toy. Well, these guys that made this drone, they made all these other ones too, but they decided, hey, you know what? We're going to be smart about this. So guess how much this drone weighs? 249 grams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you don't have to register it. The FAA considers this basically a toy. So
you don't need a license or anything. You can just buy it and fly.
Yeah, you're not going by the same regulations. You don't have to register with FAA and get a number and all that. You just buy it and fly it. It's crazy.
Well, so you could put it right into the flight path of the airplanes, no problem.
You shouldn't, but nobody. If anybody does that, I didn't tell them to do it.
We're just kidding.
Let's be clear about that.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to start the show over now.
You didn't hear that from Matt Rose.
Man, I can't believe that you're insinuating people should run into planes. It's just terrible.
Did I do that again?
So pretty easy to fly. $500.
Yeah.
And video quality is pretty good. You can see stuff in real time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing.
How long does something like that take to sort of get the hang of flying the drone, for instance?
I mean, you could probably, 10, 15 minutes and you could have the gist of it. It's simple. It's simple. It even has like a training mode where it'll go slower because you can actually put it on a slower mode where it makes you so you can't make mistakes as easily. Yeah. Now, the only caveat I would say to this one is you don't want to fly in super strong winds compared to these other ones, but probably 20, 25 mile an hour winds you could fly it in. So that's still...
So a light breeze like we have behind us right now would be fun.
Yeah, exactly. A light breeze. Yeah, that out there, I can fly it in that. These other ones could fly in a lot heavier. But the other nice thing about this small one is it's a lot less noisy because drones tend to have this, they sound like a swarm of bees kind of thing going on. And this one's a lot less noisy. So I would suggest this one if you don't want to bother people too.
Okay. And with all of this tech stuff, just so everyone knows, we'll put the links to it, how they can find it, the names of it in our show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have to get that from you because I have no idea what you actually said.
And if you want to put a link, there's some really nice video online that you can see. This thing can shoot some really good video if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So share that stuff with me after the show and I'll put it up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, another thing I was going to say, when you're doing it, you don't just have to take video. The nice thing is it's real time, so my phone connects to it. And so as I'm doing the video, I can sit here and take video, but I can also sit here and snap pictures. So they're right on my phone before the drone ever lands. I've got these pictures on my phone, and I can be texting them off to my roofer and say, "Hey, come fix this. How much is this going to cost me?"
So what's the range on it?
This one is I want to say it's about 2 miles.
Wow, so pretty good range.
Oh yeah. It's pretty. Yeah, it's got a really good range. It's actually kind of scary how far away you can get these things from you. It gets a little scary because you're like, oh, I'm about to lose my drone. But and if they disconnect too, the other nice thing about these is they know where they're at. And to your question of how hard is it to fly, if you got disconnected from it or you're scared, you freak out or whatever, it's got a go home button. It knows where it took off from, the GPS location. It'll fly itself back and land.
Wow, that's crazy.
So that's the drones. I highly suggest drones. I'm a big fan of drones. They're nice to inspect sides of buildings and stuff too, and you can get up close to stuff. And I just I just always thought they were good. They're nice too if you're in a town and you kind of you don't necessarily want to use the satellite view. They're not always updated, and you want to just kind of fly it up a little bit and see kind of the lay of the town. It's nice too. Like in the little towns, you're not going to fly it somewhere close to an airport, but in a little city or something like that, you can fly it up and kind of get the gist of the town.
So they go pretty high then too, right?
Yeah, you can go way beyond the FAA limit. Again, I'm not suggesting to go beyond the FAA limit, but I think the limit last I checked was 400 feet. This thing can easily go past that.
But you can tell how high you are, so you can easily avoid it also.
Yep, it tells you exactly how high you are at all times, how fast you're going, everything, how far away you are. It tells you in feet exactly how far you are from the drone.
Great.
So,
yeah, it does sound really cool. And actually, I've always wanted to I've wanted to have a drone for a while, and I've just been kind of I don't know which one to get. So I think you might have just convinced me to buy a drone. So
yeah, you definitely should. You should, even if you're not using it for this every day. It may, like I said, it pays for itself the first time you use it.
Well, we paid more than that to have somebody else come out and do a drone footage of a building before. So
and again, that's another benefit. You can pay somebody to edit your video if you're not a good video editor, but to get good footage with a drone is stupid easy, because it levels itself. It's got a gimbal or gimbal, whoever depending on who you ask, whatever you want to call it, but it steadies itself. And so the footage is rock solid as they're flying around, and you can take the footage yourself and not have to pay somebody else at your property and then send it off to somebody on Fiverr or Upwork or something like that and say, hey, edit this into a promotional video for me. And it pays for itself over and over and over again that way.
I can see where that'd be really useful if you're, trying to sell a property or raise money to buy a property or something like that.
Well, I think it's really good for promotional videos of the property too. If you want it to look really slick, you've got a website, people go to your website and you put it with some, I mean, in this, it can fly inside too. You could even have it fly inside a unit, take your footage inside the unit if you want, and then just kind of splice it all together and just give people that, high end feel of your place. Anyway, okay. So the last thing that I brought is that when we do interior inspections, and this has come in really handy, is this GoPro. It's not a regular GoPro though. So this one is the GoPro Max. And the thing that sets the GoPro Max apart from a regular GoPro is it's got, if you can see this, it's got a camera on the front, it's got a camera on the back. That's glare right there, but it's got a camera on the front and the back, and they're spherical cameras. So this thing actually does 360-degree video. So the nice thing about this is if you're doing due diligence walks, right, I can pay attention to the due diligence walk and still capture everything in the unit. And also if there are people there, they don't tend to get as upset because this has what's called horizon leveling in it. And what that means is that I don't have to have the camera pointing at you like this, where it looks like you're getting filmed. I can actually walk around with it like this. And that's what I do. I have a strap and I put it, and it just sits right here over my shoulder. And as I'm walking around, it's videoing the whole unit. And so when I want to go back later and say, okay, well, let's go back and look at the condition of XYZ unit, or what was the, like in our current place, what were the countertops like there? What were the faucets like there? Whatever. This connects to the GoPro website. You upload the video, and then, like in our case, our contractors, we, instead of just saying here's what we've got, here's a floor plan or whatever, I just give them access. They go on there and look and see what the unit looks like. And they already have the dimensions and everything else, and they can basically tell me, because when you watch the video back, you can move the camera all around. You just control, like if you've ever seen those 360 videos, you know what I'm talking about, where you can basically just.
So you could use this in your virtual reality headset and go back and visit it, huh?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. So long as it's got a way that you can play it. But what I typically do is I just do it on like the iPad or the phone or whatever. And once you've uploaded the video, it's just super simple. And it's, I don't have to spend all my time going around and going, oh, let me get a picture of this, let me get a picture of that. And then, especially if there's an owner in the unit, they're kind of antsy about you going around taking pictures of everything. especially if they have, maybe stuff where they're funny about it with their children or something like that. Like I said, instead you've got this, you put it like this, and it's still getting video. It just doesn't give people that creepy feeling of they're being videoed or their places being videoed or whatever. And plus you're not having to pull the camera out and sit here and do this the whole time. I feel like I can't really focus when I'm doing that. With this thing, I can focus. I can walk around, get everything, and then go.
The quality's pretty good, so you could take snaps right out of it if you want to use it for other promotional stuff or whatever.
I don't know that I'd use the pictures out of it for promotional stuff, but I could definitely use it to, to find, stuff like things about the unit. Like, yeah, like in our case, the things we've been using it for is we say, oh, well, I forget in that unit, where does this back up to? We've got to do this, and we've got to, put an access door over here. Do you remember in that particular unit, was the wall over here, and was the sink, in this orientation, or was it one of this or that or the other? And
sure,
you can kind of see, and you really can get a gist. And then also the other nice thing is, as you're going through, you're kind of documenting the condition of the unit too. So, if I come back,
use it for turns then too. Like if you before and after you rent an apartment out.
I have not done that yet, but you definitely could do that if you wanted to get the whole thing. I mean, it's really fast because you just walk through, because you're basically capturing everything all at once. It's not like you're walking through going like this, like, let me catch this side of the room and let me catch this side of the room. No, you just walk right on through the middle of the room and you're catching everything all at the same time. So it makes it a lot easier if there's ever any questions about anything.
Well, you might have sold me on this one too. So now I'm gonna have to buy a drone, a VR headset, and a GoPro Max.
What's a Max run?
The Max is like 500. So this is of the GoPros. This is the more expensive one, but it's just, I think it's great. The other nice thing about the GoPro Max is if you do want just a standard GoPro kind of thing, one camera, you can actually, there's a mode in here, you can turn it to where it's just one view, where it's just the one camera will capture. So you could still do the strapping it to a helmet or chest or whatever if you're into that kind of thing, going and doing, whatever.
So does it have the same durability stuff of the other GoPros, where it's waterproof and all that stuff?
It does have to some extent. I don't know I think there's a water resistant, a couple things you have to do to make it completely water resistant, but I think
pretty durable.
Yeah, it's pretty, like, you can't see it, but it's pretty, it's like a hard rubber for the most part.
So it's similar material to the Hero or something like that.
It's very similar to the Hero. I would say it's really similar to. I've got a couple of the Heroes too, but this one right here I think is, like I said, the having the two lenses and having it to be able to do 360 video is just it's come in handy for us so far. And like I said, in the new property we've already used it several times where we go back and me and my partners have a question, and it's, well, let's go back and look at the video. Do you remember what the sink was like in there? Because it's a hodgepodge at the place we're at. It's kind of a hodgepodge. Do we need to replace the this or that or the other there? And we're like, well, let's go back and look. We have our notes, but this is better than the notes because you can just go look. Skip it up where I want in the video, look around the room. Yeah. So I think I would highly recommend this if people are doing unit walks, especially. I think this is a nice piece of tech. It's it's a little bit more pricey than the VR headset that I mentioned earlier, but I feel like this you really get a lot out of.
It'd be great for a multifamily because if you've got your measurement, units tend to repeat, right? So you take your unit mix, they're going to be the same floor plan generally speaking, and then you're just, once you've got the measurements on the one, then you're just notating the condition on everything after that.
Yeah,
that's great.
And this is nice because it catches a lot of things we don't think about. Like I don't have to go into each room and go check light in this room, check this in this room, check every little single thing, or I forgot, does this have smoke detectors or this or that or the other? Like that was one of the questions that came up when we were going back through, like some of the units, do they all have smoke detectors or not smoke detectors? Or which ones have, lights in the ceilings or faucets or whatever that have been upgraded? And this kind of alleviates that of us having to go down and have a checklist of every single thing. So I can actually be looking at what I'm doing versus having to do a checklist and feel rushed, if that makes any sense.
It makes good sense because we do those checklists all the time.
I'm gonna buy like
yeah. For your property management company, just give one to all of your people.
I own a management company too, so I'm like, that thing's a win.
Yeah, they're awesome. And like I said, the real killer part of this for me is the horizon leveling. The whole idea that you don't have to actually disturb people and make them feel like they're being filmed, and the fact that you can hold it, out like this or like this, and you don't have to worry about if it's straight up and down either. It just somehow it knows. It just doesn't matter. You can have it up, have it crooked. It doesn't matter. It just works.
So how do you attach it? You said you had it on your shoulder or whatever.
I have a little thing, and it comes up and it goes out over my shoulder, and it just sits right over here. I can send you a picture of the last one I did where I had it sitting up on my shoulder. Yeah. And so, at first I started out, the last time that I did it, I had it, sitting up like this. And then as I realized, that it was really noticeable sitting up here looking like a parrot on my shoulder, I just turned it down like this, and it doesn't make a difference. And not one person questioned it. And this was in the middle of, COVID-19, it was in the, middle of March. And we kind of had already had this set up to go do these walks and all that. And so I said, well, I still need to get this stuff if I'm going to be there, but I don't want to disturb these people and they already feel kind of weird about people walking through their units. And so I just turned it down away from them, and not one person even looked at me sideways or thought anything about it that was, in their units or anything else.
Sure. Yeah, that's really cool. So what about, so we're going to change topics for 1 second. So you
absolutely, yeah.
This unit walk mid-March, so a month and a half ago. And you've bought the property since?
Yep.
So during the COVID-19 crisis, you closed on an apartment complex?
Yep, absolutely.
All right. And you feel good about it?
I do feel good about it, yeah.
So Brian and I closed on one like March 10 or 16. So right in the middle of March. But we've talked since then, and we haven't bought anything since mid-March, right?
Right.
And a lot of people are pausing. So you feel comfortable going forward, or is it deal specific?
I would say it's deal for me. It's deal specific. Actually, in this particular one, we went back and because it was right in the middle of it and right when the lockdowns happened, and it just everything kind of fell apart at once. We kind of leveraged it a little bit, and I don't normally like to retrade, but we retraded a little bit. And, we got our numbers together and our facts together and said, hey, look, this is what it could look like. This is what we're looking at. We'd feel more comfortable doing X, Y, and Z. And we retraded to the point where our break even is at 45%. We can have a 45% economic vacancy, and that's our break-even point. So
it's a pretty conservative break-even point.
Yeah, I feel like it's pretty.
We didn't retrade, but I think if we had, if it had been a month later, we probably would have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
because we didn't know. Yeah. Right? We didn't.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how it was with us. Things kind of started getting a little worse and a little worse, and we're like, hey, you know what? I'd really like to have a little bit of a safety net built in here. I feel like
good. I mean, we feel good about our deal, and it's been fine so far. So, knock on wood, right?
But normally, buying in an apartment building's a pretty momentous thing. And I remember kind of going to the closing and sitting there, and I'm like, I don't know. I still want this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I remember that, and that was one of the last times we've been in the same room.
Yeah,
they shut down right after that.
I didn't even get that luxury. I sat in our law office and did the closing. I was sitting in there by myself looking through the papers. It was kind of a downer, to be honest with you, because I was like, by that point I was missing people, because I had basically been more or less locked down for a few weeks, and I'm kind of like, kind of miss being around. I'm a people person, so
yeah. No doubt about that. Well, I do appreciate you is there anything else you want to share with us before I cut you off here? Do you have any more amazing tips or tech stuff you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything off the top of it. If anybody's still listening this far into it, I can't think of anything I can add to their life.
Well, listen, the thing is, if they finish their drink, which you can't see because it was disappearing.
Yeah. Like, that's a special drink.
But yeah, if they finish their drink, they probably left. That's kind of the rule on the show. We try to keep it the length of a drink.
There you go. It's a good point. That's a fair point.
But listen, if they are still listening, there's a couple things I'm going to tell them. On the next episode, and this is something we've never done before. We've never telegraphed a future episode, and it's a bit of a risk because we haven't filmed the next episode yet. But on the next episode, we're going to have a futurist on. And this guy is an expert on future technology. Like he predicts future trends. So I thought it would be really fun to have like Matt Rose on to talk about what he's doing now, and then follow that up with someone who's talking about things like future building materials and like skyscrapers that are.
So this guy's going to make me look bad. Is that the gist?
Well, no,
I'm being set
he's
up.
Not at all. He's
might make us look bad.
He's probably going to make us look crazy. But we're excited about it because
that's cool.
Because Brian's invisible again for a second there. It's very distracting. But yeah, it's gonna be really cool because this guy's actually pretty much he invented text messaging.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't say that exactly, but he actually had described it like in the 70s how they could use like 9 digits to do text messaging. You know, the ABC thing.
Yeah. The T9.
Like that was sort of his claim to fame back in the day. So
that's
I'm really
crazy
excited to have him on. Yeah, he's a British futurist, and
I look forward to seeing that one myself.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you're from Britain, this guy's like a rock star. If you're from America, no one's ever heard of him. But that's enough telegraphing for now. So
okay.
Now watch, he'll be like, "Oh, I changed my mind. I'm not coming on your show."
He's like, "How do I follow this? How do I follow this guy? He's not going to come behind me."
That's right. He's going to watch. Well, listen, little secret. We're going to film the show next week, 3 days before your show comes out, so he won't know about you.
Okay.
That way you won't scare him off.
Yeah, I didn't want to scare this poor man off with all my knowledge of drones and VR headsets.
That's right. He actually told me today that he invented a new building material that's a combination of wood and graphene. It's basically indestructible. So we'll see. I mean, maybe he'll talk about that. Maybe he won't. We'll find out. But that's for a future episode, Matt. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks again. Very informative, and hope everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, and you just cost Brian and I like $1,200 each because we're both going to go out and buy a GoPro, a drone, and a VR headset. So
look, since you teased your next episode, I need to see on the next episode previously on Old Fashioned Real Estate and have me on there.
There we go.
I'll see what I can do. We've never done that before, but if Cameron, our camera guy, is watching, which he better be because he's got to edit this, like you should see if you can work on that.
Okay.
All right, Matt.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.